Good morning, traders and investors. Welcome to Monday's edition of Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep, brought to you by OptionsHouse. Well, it looks like we got a full crew in here this morning. No one is using the Super Bowl as an excuse not to come in on Monday.
Maybe you don't have a full crew there, Joel. I don't hear anybody else. Mighty Joe Young, are you here?
All I hear are crickets.
Crickets, crickets. That's what I heard after that Super Bowl last night. That was 3.5 hours that I'm never going to get back.
It was a whooping, really from the first play, and the
It was
Seahawks.
right from the opening. Yeah, exactly. Right from the very first play. They started, and obviously the bad snap, and that was the end.
Yep, got the squares off to kind of a funky start with the two in there, but Laura was able to cash, and Jake also on the news desk, so we had a couple happy people for that. But also, I mean, the sentiment here on the news desk was those commercials were not very good.
I was trying to think what the best one was, and honestly, my vote, and I don't know what the chat room's saying here this morning, but my vote is the Radio Shack commercial. I thought that was pretty solid, but really, there wasn't that many good ones. There wasn't that much competition for the Radio Shack. If you didn't see the Super Bowl last night, the Radio Shack commercial is pretty solid. They basically came in on a bus, and so the Radio Shack guy is sitting there on his phone, and he hangs up the phone, and he looks at his partner, and he says, "The 80s called, and they want their store back." And then a bus comes in with Hulk Hogan, with Elf, with all these 80s icons, Chucky, everybody from the 80s, basically, and they start just destroying the store and taking everything off the shelves and leave the store with nothing. And then basically they go to their punchline where the 80s were done and we're redoing all the stores. Come check us out. So,
Well,
yeah, so
we had a big problem with commercials. You know, I told you that our dog Perry does not like animals on TV. It goes absolutely nuts. And so it must have been, I mean, not in every single commercial, but in a majority of the commercials, they had some kind of animal in there. And so Perry was jumping up and barking, and it was so. I basically just walked out of the room and grabbed another beer whenever the commercials came on. So
are you sure the dog wasn't a Denver fan?
no. Perry had some squares, but no direct allegiance to Denver. Well, I got to tell you guys my favorite part of the Super Bowl.
When it ended?
Nope. The halftime show.
You liked that halftime show,
How
did you?
come no one told me about Bruno Mars? Huh?
Bruno Mars.
Dennis, have you heard of Bruno Mars?
Joel, well, I've obviously heard of you. Are you serious? You're not even serious.
I swear to God,
No,
I have
Joel's
never heard of
totally
Bruno Mars.
serious. Remember the Fountains of Wayne discussion, Dennis, or Sam Cooke? I don't think.
Have you
Joel
heard of the
likes
Red Hot
music
Chili
very
Peppers, or
much.
was that
Yes,
before
I
your time
that of
too,
course,
Joel?
man. Red Hot, yeah. Come on, man. A little rock and roll. No, and I'm very disappointed in my girls for never pointing it out. I mean, I don't listen to these 95.5 or 96.3 here. I mean, I'm all about sports radio and all sports radio stations in there. And I've heard some of his songs, but I thought he was jamming, and I'm like, look at that. I go, look, kind of reminded me of kind of a cross between Michael Jackson and Prince.
Look at you. You're gonna go out and buy the
No.
album now, aren't you? Bruno Mars.
He is gonna be the next. I mean, I guess he already is the superstar, but
He's pretty big, actually.
he's
Joel,
huge.
but
He was good, man. He jammed. I thought he was. I mean, he's almost as good a dancer as me, and I thought his songs were pretty good. So that was a highlight of the game for me.
I'll pass on the Bruno Mars. Honestly, I thought the halftime show. I'll put it in perspective. My wife actually usually enjoys the halftime show. That's usually the only part of the football game she actually likes. And she was still during the halftime show in the concert. She was actually playing on her phone. So that's how much that halftime show that she appreciated.
What about you, Joe? Are you a Bruno Mars fan or not? No, he's
Joe is obviously just not here. He's not even responding. To
yeah.
you,
He's
Joel.
actually he's on the phone trying to get Bruno's Mars tickets right now. So, all right. So we really don't have a Super Bowl indicator because Seattle was originally an AFC team, right? So now they're an NFC team. So we can't discuss that. I do have a tidbit from the Trader's Almanac though. In the first trading day in February, the Dow and the S&P were up 10 of the last 11, and the Nasdaq's been up 9 years in a row. So We got a little bit of historical precedence for today, and it looked like the S&Ps are starting out in that direction. Currently trading up 5 points here, Dennis. What's moving us higher?
Um, Actually, Herbalife is about the only thing I really see on the radar moving higher here this morning, and it's popping up because it did come out and they upped the guidance, actually preliminary results for Q4, and they're seeing $1.26 up to $1.30, where analyst estimates were down at $1.17. So I guess Ackman's under a little bit of heat here this morning. Stock's trading up about $2 right now. Actually, it's pulling back a little bit from where it was just trading. HLF trading at $66 right now. Went out at 64.37. Interesting chart on the technicals there. Just a slow, steady climb. You were talking about wedges and other things. This kind of got a little wedge down there too.
I have not heard a whole lot about this stock as of late. It's been kind of quiet. I guess it was affected when the new skin came out with that news
Yep.
regarding, so that affected it a little bit. But it's trading up in the pre-market here. Let's take a look at the pre-market high. We're trading up here. We're trading up 212. And let me see if I can identify that pre-market high for you here in Herbalife. You don't hear Ackman talk. I mean, it's been kind of quiet. Icon's been kind of quiet, so you haven't heard a ton. We have got a pop in the session over 67 is 67.45. So look at that. We've backed off over $1 since that level. Looking at the daily charts in Herbalife, you did have a couple tops right around 67. We have broken above that in the pre-market, but looks if you can clear this 67.97 high from the 30th. Looks like there's a lot of air, and that air was the result of the whole new skin China thing.
And speaking of the whole new skin China thing, that's an interesting chart kind of setting up here now, Joel, as well. It's kind of just been hanging out here in the whole $80 area for the better part of 2 weeks since it had that enormous fall from 140 down to $67 or wherever it got down to. $80 kind of consolidated, but it's trying to drift higher here. It's trading now up at 86.10 here this morning. It is popping a little bit, actually. It's funny that these two stocks move here together now, but it is fun popping here off of the HLF news a little bit.
Yeah, it had the day that you probably wanted to have been trading this from the wedge perspective was on Thursday. It had just all those lower highs, and then it busted out above the $83 level. Had a nice run to 89.90. Have kind of pulled back into that area here. Not quite. On Friday got down to 82.41. The old resistance was at 82.60 here. So little bit of a bounce off that level. Closed at 85.15. Not doing a whole lot in the pre-market here, but looks like that $90 level, 89.90, the high from Thursday, be the next target if you're playing this on the long side.
Show us the daily chart and show us the wedge that you were talking about there and explain that technical term to some of our new traders out there. What do you mean by wedge, Joel?
I tell you, it's not coming out. My daily here, for some reason, is not coming out as a daily here. Let me see if I can pull it up. My intraday and my daily are looking just alike for some reason here. But a wedge is just after a big move, and you have a consolidation in a tight area, and you have a series of lows that are higher lows and a series of lower highs as well. And the market just builds itself into a wedge. And so what you want to do is you want to play the breakout, the top of the wedge, or the breakdown below the bottom of the wedge. So just when you look at a stock like New Skin, it just had huge ranges, and then to come down for 4, 5, 6 days, trading a tight range, people squaring up positions, and broke out to the upside. Now it is trading above that wedge here, so got me a little bit of bullish on the New Skin.
So that's something you'd look at paying a straddle here on there, and then Joel,
No.
or
I
you
think
just
that
take
it's
the one side, just
yeah,
looking
of
at calls on the
course.
thing
Just
now.
take the one side. I mean, the news came out on the China thing. I mean, it did break out from the top of the wedge, so got a lot of room to fill back. Had a huge move off the 140 level. I mean, really, it was just China came out and the news came out and they bashed it and stuff, but. What if China comes out and says, "Oh, we find nothing wrong with their business practices." I'm not saying this thing's going to go back to 140, but from a technical and fundamental thing, it looks like New Skin could be on the recovery road.
Bring up that NQ chart too, because obviously we saw that was back when Muddy Waters was dissing them, and the stock went from $25 all the way down to 7, and it's consolidated here for a long time. The whole 15 area now was drifting up about a week ago, and then pulled back to test 15 once again. Now NQ actually starting to drift higher here, trading 17.10 this morning, went out at 17.02. What do you think of this chart?
Same kind of thing. I mean, it got bashed on the news and just never had to follow through. I mean, if you act and look like at the lows of the move in this thing, it was actually when when all that news is coming out, and now it's drifting back. You've had to break from 25 and change down to 7.5, 18-point move. You add 9 points to that, boom, you're trading right at the 50% area. If NQ can get a little boost here, it closed out that recent high was in 1850, buck 40 away from that. Get back above there, get a close above there, and who knows, might have 20 bucks on the horizon.
Let's move on to some of the movers from Friday. And the biggest mover of the day, I would say, had to be Google. That thing was just crazy. Obviously, reported earnings the Thursday night. They tanked it after hours on the initial report, but then started buying it up. The crazy split was announced and everything else. And stock actually ended up closing fairly near the highs of the day. Started climbing up, got up to 1180, and then pulled back a bit, but then ended up closing up at 1181. Is trading up another $3 here this morning at 1184. Google, this stock you just cannot you just cannot short this stock. It seems like every time you try shorting it just comes right back.
Looking at the trading from Friday, you did have that huge pre-market range, but if you want to use old resistance as new support, and you would have had to been really quick on it, the high from Thursday was 1152.49. And even though it opened up at 1171, you did get a dip down below that 1152.49 level.
Wow.
Got down to 1151.13, and then bounced hard. I mean, I guess the only kind of target that you can have on this thing, we are trading very close to the high from Friday, which is 1186.54. And I believe we even got higher than that in the pre-market. Actually, or excuse me, the after hours on Thursday, we got up to 1194, and then 1200, right?
That's the big number maybe to keep an eye on. But it's a good point there, Joel. Right off the hop, we did open up quite a bit higher there on the Google. Opened up around 1172 and quickly in the first 15 minutes tanked 20 points all the way down to 1151. Kind of think what's happening there probably is a lot of people looking at the report saying, oh, it's not that great. It's probably going to give back all of these gains. And I'm going to take this opportunity when the stock's opening up $30 to actually sell my stock. So all those guys get out. The bottom pickers come back in, the people that want pullbacks in Google always, and they immediately come back in to buy it. And within an hour, the thing's back up and trading up near 1180. So crazy range, crazy volatility, and it looks like this thing just continues to move higher here, even in the pre-market. Now it's moved up another 50 cents, 1184.50. Also making new highs on Friday was Facebook stock making a new high all the way up to 63.37. It was kind of a wild range for a lot of stocks, though. It was another one that opened up, quickly gave back a couple of dollars just off the hop, and then started rallying back up and actually closed fairly strong.
Yeah, you see that it had the big move when the earnings came out, kind of digested it a bit, and then off to the races again. Still haven't hit that high that you had the high when you were trading in the after hours and pre-market after the earnings were announced was 63.95. So that's a level. You had to sell off on Friday. It got down to 60.17. So kind of got near a whole number, but didn't quite get down to that 60 even level. So targets on the upside for Facebook today, kind of a similar pattern in the pre-market that you had after the earnings were announced. 63.37. Boy, someone really has an opinion. You had that high on Friday at that level, and then today in the pre-market, the high is 63.38. So that's your initial resistance point here for Facebook.
We've got Twitter earnings coming up shortly. Brent, are you here with us here this morning? I haven't heard anything from Brent. When is it? Is it tomorrow? When is Twitter earnings?
Let me see here. But I am here today, yes.
I
His,
think I know they're coming up this week. I forget which day.
How about Wednesday, it looks like.
It looks like Wednesday with the
Looks
Twitter
like
earnings.
Wednesday, yes.
And the stock is popping $1.50 right now here again. Is there any news breaking on Twitter? Because it's just starting to hit my filters here in the last few minutes. Really starting to pop
Let
up.
me check.
Stock obviously closed there up at 65.37 was the high, closed 64.50. But this is kind of breaking out here again this morning.
Not seeing anything official coming out of Twitter right now.
looking at the charts, you did have a nice look at almost similar, very similar ranges on Thursday and Friday. 65.24, 65.37, the two highs, and then the lows within 15 cents of each other. So you broke out to the upside here. It's above the 65.37 level. That will now act as support. You had a high up at 67.73 on the 7th, so that would be your next target. But the Facebook earnings have really, really helped this issue. I believe we're going to have Steve Clausen on from OptionsHouse tomorrow, and perhaps he could talk with us about some possible options scenarios to play this and check out the implied volatility because there's going to be a good move off these earnings.
We actually should go take a look at the implied volatility right now if we can. I'll pop over here and try to get you some quick numbers here. Looking at the options chain, I think is that the weeklies here? I'm just trying to check it out. It looks to me 64 and a half. Oh, wow. It looks like a good $11 of implied volatility. Is that right? Holy cow. Yeah, it looks like to me like it's implying about an 11-point move off of the earnings. So I guess it's the first report, but wow, man, it's hard to play something from, if you were buying that straddle there, it's hard to play
You're
that and
dead.
go for $11, man. It almost makes me want to sell it, but I guess, funny things can happen on their first report.
It's interesting when I got in this morning, we were talking about the Super Bowl, and one of the first comments that Jake made was, were you following Twitter? Did you see, some of the stuff that was going around, and he said some of it was very funny, some of it very mean, but some of it was funny and entertaining. So I mean, it's just become another social medium for something, for big events and stuff. So who knows how far the reach is in this thing, but playing it ahead of earnings here. I mean, you have the old time, you said implied volatility of 10 or 11. I mean, you add another 5-6 points to where we're trading, and you have the all-time high at 74.73. But the breaks that the declines that this thing has had, it has bounced back, got down to 55, the 55 area a few times, and every time it does, it's just had huge rebounds. So I think the street's looking for pretty good earnings out of Twitter.
Oh, it'll be interesting to see. They get a lot of free advertising too. Think about how many times on those commercials you see right at the end of the commercial, you see Twitter, follow us on Twitter. You see something about a hashtag with Twitter. I mean, think about those commercials. They're paying $4 million a pop, and at the end of it all, you see like a hashtag thing for Twitter. A lot of free advertising they get for themselves always too. But I mean, it's you got to give them props. The Twitter. I was on Twitter last night when I'm watching the Super Bowl too because it's funny. You get some people tweeting some funny things. It's a good way to follow it all. I've always used Twitter even for breaking news too. Like if you follow a lot of good, news sources and follow a lot of good people, you can get a lot of good news off of it too. So I just don't know. The tricky thing is just figuring out how to monetize it. I mean, Facebook is trying and they're starting to obviously find decent ways to do it. I mean, you see these promotional tweets where they've got links in there, but I never click any of those promotional tweets. When they pop into my Twitter feed or whatever, it's McDonald's or it's somebody else with into promotion, I never click them. So I'm just wondering, are they paying just to have that tweeted out, or do you actually have to click the link for them to get to pay more? I wonder how that exactly works.
Well, it works okay if looking at the stock price because Facebook and Twitter, social media and stocks, both looking good here.
Well, I say think it works okay anyways. LinkedIn, we haven't talked about it for a while, and we might as well talk about it. It's obviously in the same space here. Stock is popping $2 this morning at 217.80. Went out at 215.21. The stock had problems there early in the year when it broke through 200. That breakdown was a fake down. Stock popped all the way back. A couple weeks ago back up over 230. Pulled back to retest it just a few days ago, did not quite get to the 200 area, and now is starting to drift higher here again. With Facebook breaking out to new highs, with Twitter trying to break out, do you think LinkedIn is going to start moving higher here again?
This is really like the kind of like the accordion chart here, going up and down like that. It's kind of hard to peg. It just kind of sticks out in my mind when we had Michael Pachter on a couple weeks ago, and he just didn't think they went right with the business model on this one, as far as the subscription fees and stuff, and the stock has just kind of been in a trading range. I mean, you really can't call it. I mean, it has that spiked up to 235. I mean, looking at yesterday, Friday's range, you had a high at 218.95. You haven't got that high in the pre-market. A couple highs in the 220 area. So I think until they, have another good earnings release or something, it's going to continue to be a choppy and volatile stock.
Some of these upgrades and downgrades we're getting today. Here's an interesting one. Analysts always chasing. Newmont downgraded HSBC here this morning. Newmont got absolutely murdered on Friday. I've actually got this in my investment portfolio. Not pleased. The earnings came out. They obviously didn't like them. The stock opened fairly strong, kind of just flat, but just cascaded down throughout the entire day. Ended up giving back almost $2.50. Just an enormous move for a stock size of Newmont and a gold stock. So that's making new lows on the move here. I'm not liking this chart at all here and now. Like I said, I've got it in my investment portfolio now. But even as an investment, I'm not liking, this breakdown here in the chart.
And on Friday's action, too, I mean, it's kind of interesting that it opened about 30, 40 cents lower. You had 23.80, which was the low on Thursday. And you opened up within a dime of that area. And you did get back over Thursday's low. And then the bottom fell out here, got down to 21.27, getting a little bit of a bounce here, 21.60. Jarrett got stopped out of his small position on that. Dennis, I guess when you look at this in the Newmont chart here, it's kind of hard to tell on this daily, but a few other times when it bottomed, it's a big stock. I'm looking at when it bottomed here at the end of 2013. You made about 4, 5, 6 lows in the same area. At that time, it was 22.34 to 22.50 level. So now
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be your resistance, on the way back. I know you said you were looking for a little pop to wiggle out, so that might be the area where you had all those lows back in December. And I guess before you want to step into this thing back on the long side, you want to see that similar pattern where you make multiple. I mean, I'm actually looking at a weekly here, and that thing hung out in 3, 4, 5, weeks in the same area. So until you see that kind of pattern, I think you just have to stay away from Newmont. And also, I just kept on. I was talking to you on Friday about it, and you're like, "Oh, they're killing it. They're killing." I'm like, "Well, gold's not bad. Gold's not bad." And you're like, "Their earnings were bad. Their earnings were
Well, it
bad."
was actually comments, I think, that they said even. I was looking, they were just saying their all-in cost of production was going to be up around 1,100 to 1,150 an ounce. And I'm like, that's like $100 more than like Barrick, I believe. So all-in cost production is scary because you start getting under 1,150, these things don't make any money at all. So obviously with gold trading up here at 1,240, that's not a lot of wiggle room really. So I think that's really why they started slamming this, because I don't think they thought the all-in cost production was going to be that high for Newmont this year. And it obviously is a little bit higher than they thought. And that's what really slammed this stock. And I mean, we know technicals take a back seat when fundamental news breaks. If you've got a technical trade on it, and this wasn't a technical trade for me, this was more of an investment. It was something, I've got like 85 stocks in my investment portfolio, which is completely different than trading. And I put Newmont in there because I have one gold stock. I have Barrick. And I was like, I need to get some more exposure to gold. I looked at my exposure to gold, and it's less than 1% of my portfolio. So I was like, I kind of like the Newmont chart. I bought it at 23. It popped to 25. I was really happy with it. Now here it's down at 21.60, so I'm not liking it as much. But because of the fundamental news saying that the cost production's that high, I'm not liking that one in the portfolio as much. So I'm not basing this really on technicals here. I was basing it more on fundamentals and from a portfolio allocation perspective. But if you've got a technical trade on and you know the stock's going to report, you sometimes want to take those technical trades off before the report, because it's almost like gambling into the report, because technicals will not matter when fundamental news comes out.
And it just, like I said, it just paused there at the open too. So it did give you a little bit of a shot, but then fell out. 2160 was the close. I mean, if you're going back, I mean, on a monthly here, I mean, to see, you probably have to take a look to see when the stock is traded this low. On the monthly here, I'm going back to the end of 2008. You had a couple lows, one at 2117. Well, that's interesting. What was the low? What was the low on Friday in Newmont? The low on
21.27.
yeah, 2127. So whole number area, I guess for your Newmont Bulls, you just want to see it just make a couple lows around this $21 area, perhaps get a little bit of get a foundation for something to rally, but not expecting it to go right back up today. That's for sure.
Brent, did Jared's just piping it here in the chat? Did this actually was this scheduled to report there on Friday, or was this just preliminary or preliminary results that they released early?
It's pretty customary that a mining company like that will issue production results. So that was what Jared was noticing on the 30th was some preliminary gold production and copper production figures.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and like I said, it was those all-in costs that really slammed it out. Jared, if you're still in this, I mean,
No, he got
obviously we've
out.
got more
He got
information
out.
here now. We cannot give recommendations here on the show, but I can tell you from my perspective, I don't like it. I don't think I'd be coming in here picking bottoms in this thing. I don't like the fact that they said the all-in cost production was going to be up over $1,100. I think it's too high. And I'm scared of that because, like I said, if gold has a tough year and if we fall 10% in gold, this thing's not making any money, and that's a scary thought. We see, what happens to Alcoa when they start not making money. The thing goes to single digits. So obviously Alcoa's been coming back this year, but it's scary. It's just tight. It's tight. The margins are tight.
I would just from if you're looking at the earnings, your thesis, you got out of it. I would just look for a similar formation that that it had at the end of 2013, and let it make several lows in the same area and see.
Yeah.
So then you have a reference point at least. Now you're just saying, okay, the 2127 is going to hold. You're kind of taking a shot. Trading up a little bit in the pre-market, and also, Jared, I mean, if you want to use a historical perspective, you did have the low at 2117 in November of 2008, and you had a low in October of 2008, 2140. So long-term support here for Newmont.
And Jared did say he's actually out of it now, so he did move out, which is a good thing. I mean, when stocks take out, it's good to have you're out and your trading plan there, and it's good that you did have a trading plan because when stocks start making new lows, and we're talking multi-year lows here for Newmont, scary to be long them. And even look at this Gold Corp. Look at Gold Corp on a Friday. It was popping up. Barrick was actually holding up quite well. So this was really just stock specific. This was stock specific to Newmont, and I'm fairly confident it was just because of those cost production numbers that came out.
Yeah, did we talk about a lot of these gold companies still had cost of production set at around $1,000 level?
Yeah, a
Those
lot
are
of them in the thousands. Barrick's trying to get theirs down. They're, obviously aware here that we're not at 1900 gold anymore. You obviously got to try to wiggle that number down as much as you can here, because if gold continues to cascade down, if gold has another bad year, I mean, all of these stocks will have struggled to make any money at all. So it's scary when it's getting that tight. And when you're up in 1150, I'd rather be down at 1000 or 1050. And I think Barrick is trying to work to get those costs down. Probably why Barrick has been outperforming Newmont here over the course of the last couple months.
Yeah, you should have bought the Barrick.
Well, I still got the Barrick. I'm still in that one too, and I'm underheating that too. I mean, from a portfolio perspective, you guys are running, you got 20, 30 stocks in your portfolio. I mean, this is something you probably want to have a little bit of exposure to some precious metals. Maybe I should just be exposed directly to the gold instead of the miners, just because obviously these miners don't make money at all when the gold prices start going down. But at least if gold goes down $100, you still got gold. You still got something there. So.
Well,
Uh,
let's just look at the gold chart here, real quickly here, just to get a longer term perspective. I mean, it's trying. It's really trying. It got under 1200, formed the base, and it's really been trying to break out about 1270, 1280. Hasn't been able to do it. 1240 has been the bottom of the trading range. We snuck there on a few days here. Still real quiet though. You haven't had you had this big move up a couple weeks, about 7, 8 trading sessions ago. That didn't hold, but you're just coming back. I mean, the gold chart surely looks a lot better than that Newmont chart, Dennis.
Yeah, and again, we're just saying, when you're coming out and you're saying your cost of production is higher than your competitors, it's not good news to say, especially with gold not trading that much higher than your cost of production. The margins are tight there. But I don't know if I kind of look at this gold chart a little bit differently here, and it's kind of, if you think about it, remember we had that big down day where we got killed, then all the miners actually went down too. We start seeing the miners go down on days that the market is going down as well. That's not good news because those things usually pop when the market goes down. There's usually a negative correlation there. And then you look at this and you could say, well, maybe the gold, okay, well, maybe you could argue there's a double bottom from back in July and this whole 11, 50 or whatever. Where do we get down to back? Just
Actually, that's a good point. And you got down to 1179.60 in
Yep.
June, and then you got down to 1181.10 in December. So 1180.
So you got technicians arguing that the double bottom's in and maybe this is the time to buy. But if we ever take out that 1180 number on gold, all bets are off. From my perspective, anyway. So I think we've obviously got to hold. That's the key number for me. If you're in this thing for a long-term trade, thinking this thing is eventually going higher, and maybe it is. Maybe gold price is, but I don't know. I think if the market starts to show strength here again, I think they'll throw gold out just like they did last year, and I wouldn't be surprised that 1180 gets taken out. But it all depends on the market. The market might actually be the indicator for where gold goes, the overall market, that is. Also, on the upgrades and downgrades, we started with Newmont here, and we kind of went on some tangents, but we got Goldman Sachs getting upgraded at Guggenheim Securities here this morning. Interesting chart here on the GS. Multiple highs in the same area and kind of multiple lows in the same area from the last 4 or 5 days.
Right. Maybe they got a technician doing that upgrade. And then let's just go into the whole, what was holding us up at the beginning of the year? What was the big leader in the market? We had a weakness in a couple sectors, but it was the financials that were the champs, right? You had Bank of America had that sprint over $17. Goldman Sachs had great earnings, and they just punished the thing. And, now it's come back now. At least you have, if you're looking to jump into this thing, you have a reference point here. Three of the last, I'd call it, six lows. That 163.30 low that you had on Friday, you had another one at 163.43. Another one at 63.62 here. So if you're looking at this from a swing trade perspective, even if you're buying it here at the 165.5 level, you have an out 2 points lower. And if it can retrace, even, a third of this move, dropping off a cliff from 181, you got a pretty good risk reward ratio there.
But you got 3 4 days. We had the big down move for 2 weeks, and they have 3 4 days kind of hanging out in the same area. Stocks really look at all these financials. Like look at Morgan Stanley, look at JP Morgan. These are all sitting right near their lows. I mean, we're only like 16, 17 S&P points off the low, so it's not like we've bounced a lot. But the relative strength in the financials really is not that great here when you think about it. I mean, look at the chart of Citigroup. That thing on Friday made a new low down at 47.29. So this is somewhat concerning here that the S&P futures are about 18 points off the lows, which is about 1%. But a lot of these financials not far off the lows at all.
Didn't it, Brett, maybe you can help me out with this. Didn't Dick Beauvais jump off the Citigroup bandwagon last week?
Is that why Citigroup is making new lows?
I think so.
That Citigroup chart, holy cow, Joe! What do you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 11 down days in the last out of the last 12. That's kind of getting Exxon Mobil-ish, isn't it?
Yeah, and that low that you had, looking at the chart, you had a low on Friday at 47.29. That eclipsed the lows that you had in October at the 48.5 level. And now you're looking at an area. If you look on a longer-term chart here for Citigroup, you had this lows. You had some lows back in 2013 at the 47.60 level, and then earlier in the year at 47.64. You are trading, below that. You took that out on Friday. Maybe you can get down to that $47 level and find some support there. But this thing, huge fall off from we just were trading a couple of weeks ago. Made a multi-year high at 55.28.
Yeah,
On Wednesday of last week, Dick Bobet downgrading Citigroup from buy to sell. Pretty big downgrade there from
that'll
Dick.
do it. One of your
Yep.
biggest Citigroup supporters there jumping completely off the bandwagon here. So, what was he? Was he
Yeah,
citing
what'd he
any
say?
reasons for that?
I actually didn't get to check out the note.
Yeah, I mean he's been a big proponent of that stock for a long time, and then that's like not even like a buy to neutral or a buy to hold. That was like the big turner.
The big
Yeah,
S word
yeah, from buy to
that we're not
sell.
allowed to say on the show.
Yeah, that was a big one. So let's see if the stock can recover.
What about MasterCard here? Look at the move there on Friday. Wow, that MasterCard chart. That thing got down all the way to 71.75. And man, if you're still riding the short from the post split, holy cow, you're up as much as 12 points on Friday in as little as 5 trading sessions. That thing has just been annihilated since it split.
Yeah, what do you think? Does people get too many shares, or just people like getting too excited on the split
I
and
think I think
piling in?
it's statistics show when you look back, and we were saying about it before the split. These things usually are relatively weak after they split, and this was just textbook. I mean, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be this week, but you could say, oh, the market's a little bit to do with it, but the market's really not that down that much in the last week. This is pretty stock specific. Obviously, Mastercard reported earnings which missed. I believe they missed on Friday, which was not good at all. But they did come back, so there's an all bad news for Mastercard. This thing got down, kind of put in the V bottom. You know how I like my V bottom when the thing tanks right off the bat and then goes all the way back up and then consolidates. So I actually don't mind this thing as much now. It is trading up another 50 cents here this morning. I think some bottom pickers are eventually going to start to come into Mastercard here, but that was an ugly Friday though. Holy
And
cow.
what about its brethren here, Visa?
His
Did they?
brother-in-law Visa. Yeah,
Yeah.
Visa's been drifting down here too, kind of hanging out near the lows as well. I guess you can almost say this is kind of trying to put in a double bottom here too. 215.12 was
Ooh.
low on the 27th. Or no, was that the low? I'm trying to go. Yeah, on the 27th, and then just the other day, 215.10. So yeah, that is kind of a double bottom.
Right, and also you had some support in the 215 area back in December. You had a low at 214.54 here. So key level 215, traded up in the pre-market here. First resistance point 218.90. That was your high from Friday.
AT&T and Verizon both getting absolutely murdered here right now. AT&T to cut pricing of family wireless plan by 20%. I think that's maybe what started this cascade down here. And over the course of the last half hour or so since we've been on the show, I've just watched the AT&T drift lower, 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 and now we are down at 32.71 on AT&T. Verizon getting beat up big time here too. It's down 70 cents here this morning. So these two stocks with their higher dividends getting absolutely murdered here this morning.
Yeah, it had a wicked day off earnings. Now you had a low on Friday at 32.77. Currently trading right at that level. But below that, man, you don't have much to lean on here until that low on earnings day, which was 32.01. So keep an eye if you're holding this AT&T. You want to get a bounce here off that level. And it's funny when these stocks have these bad numbers and then they rally back. It seems like whether it's this is obviously news, but just seems like these reactions on the earnings day. I mean, take for exactly that Goldman Sachs. I mean, everyone, oh, these are good numbers. These are good numbers. I went down $2-3. If you were expecting a recovery in the thing, no way. It dropped another $10. Looking at Verizon here, this chart is a little bit easier to digest because you've had multiple lows in under $47. So that's a little bit easier to, if you're trying to find a support point. Had a low at 47.55 on Thursday, and then the recent low of the move has been 47.28. So trading right down there, trading down 72 cents here. So Verizon trading on some major support as well.
Zynga, big pop on Friday on their earnings, getting downgraded here this morning at Bank America. Maybe Bank America is looking at that whole 450 level technical resistance big time. We got up there multiple times in November, really couldn't really break out from the 450. On Friday, we kissed 450 on the button. Today, we're pulling back here on the BAC downgrade down to 426. The thing's trading down 3%.
Yeah, you had all those highs at the 450 level in Zynga back at the end of November. Got excited in the pre-market, got it up there again, nice round number like 450. Now you're falling back here in trading here in the session. You're trading down just a little bit here. I'd keep an eye on this 410 level. That was a low from Friday. If it takes out the 410, boy, there's no reason to be in this thing. You got a long ways to go down to fill the gap from Thursday's trading here at 357. So Zynga Bulls looking for that 410 to hold. Looking, it did get down to 413 here in the 8 o'clock hour. So the support in the pre-market confirming the support from Friday.
We're going to get earnings from Yum Brands tonight, so we might as well do a technical on this just ahead of the earnings. YUM had it actually pretty decent Friday. It opened up near a low, kind of put in a double bottom here too. Seeing lots of double bottoms here in a lot of different stocks. 3 days ago, got down to 65.87. On Friday, down at 65.83 and turned and reversed and started rallying throughout the rest of the day. Actually closed fairly strong, 67.15. What do you think going into this report from Yum?
I like to see follow through immediately off the open through Friday's high, 67.59. Had a nice move at the end of the day. Minor resistance coming up at the $68 level. Had a high at 67.92. Then after that, it opens up quite a bit here. But nice support. I mean, really excellent support under the $66 level. If I was short that thing and got back under 66, I think I might look to take this off ahead of earnings because that area coincides with the low that you had on October 25th at 66.06.
Look at this McDonald's chart here too. You want to talk about classic support. 3 days, the lows were 92.87, 92.92, and 92.95. Wow. And then we just took off on Friday, bouncing over $1 in the morning, kind of consolidated in the afternoon, but still closed fairly strong, 94.17. This is a stock that has just been dead money for 2 years here. Do you think eventually here we're going to start to show some life in a stock like Mickey D's?
It's been hanging around here for 100 for like ever and a brother. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of competition out there. I guess Wendy's has been delving into their market share a little bit. If I was holding this thing from that bounce on Friday, look at that. You had a high at 94.55, and then going back 4 and 5 trading sessions, you had two highs at 94.64 and 94.68. So you got the bounce. Really got to take that out. I like to see follow through that right off the open. And then you do have some openings and really defined resistance just under 96.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had, boy, this thing's looking, I haven't seen Mickey D's look this technical for a while, but big range for it on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, you're right in the middle of the range. I almost think I sit on my hands on it right here, but man, great support down there just below 93 and great resistance just below 96. So support very well defined, resistance well defined. Problem is we're kind of right stuck in the middle here. So I guess if you start getting higher, maybe find some shorts. Start getting lower, maybe or find some buyers. But I don't know which way it's going to break here. We're starting to run short on time here. S&P futures just treading water here, up 3 points at 1779.5. It looks like it's going to be a quiet session. Obviously, we're starting to come out of earnings season. We are obviously going to get Twitter this week. We're going to get Yum Brands tonight. We do have a few other companies here. But what are your thoughts here on the S&P futures this week? We obviously had the big down day there. We've rallied back here now, kind of hanging out. We've kind of been this whole 1760 to 1788 area. What are your thoughts?
Three lows in the lower 1760s here. 1761 and a quarter was the low that you had on Friday, and then the two previous days' lows right in the 64, 67, 75. So it looks like the market's just trying to digest this down move here during earnings season. So, I mean, if you're looking for a possible swing trade here, you are 18 handles away from, the low of the move on Friday. But I think as we drift back lower, I think things are going to tighten up ahead of that. Looking for the close to be minor support at 1776.50. And then you have the pre-market low at 1771.50. But just looks from on the when you're looking on the daily here, it just looks like we're in for a little bit of consolidation as we end earnings season. So we'll see how that resolves itself. Okay, we got a guest on today. We're going to have Alan Brochstein on of the 420 Investor. And this guy has been all over the marijuana stocks and had two cities or two states represented in the Super Bowl in that high scoring affair. So we're going to take high scoring for Seattle. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to have Alan Brochstein on of the 420 Investor. We'll be right back with you. Welcome back, traders and investors. We have Alan Brochstein here, the 420 investor, a cannabis financial analyst. Alan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Probably feeling a lot better than the Denver Broncos.
Right.
Holy cow! They must be a lot of pot smoking going on in Denver here this morning. No?
I would think there's some wake and bake action there for sure.
And I
But
bet
probably
you.
last night in Seattle, this morning there. That's probably the way it is.
Right. So I want to get into this. There's a discussion. I mean, you've followed this industry for a long time. You've been on top of it with investors, pointing out, possible investment opportunities. But now another well-known analyst of stocks, a very colorful TV personality, is going to start covering marijuana stocks. Kramer.
That's right. Some people have said that I'm trying to be the Kramer of cannabis, but now I guess Kramer's going to be the Kramer of cannabis. And he tweeted this weekend, and just for some background, a lot of people have been asking him for his views, and he has just totally ignored the sector. He said it's too small. He's had a lot of reasons, and I don't blame him necessarily. I just published a monthly review on Seeking Alpha, and I totaled up. There's 40 names that I'm tracking. They have about I think $8.5 billion of market cap total. These are all the names. That's 200 million average, a median of about 60 million. So, that's a little bit small for stuff that he can talk about. But I spoke to Ross Erkin on Friday. They rolled out their coverage. It's on mainstreet.com. It's one of the street properties and the street.com properties. So Main Street, you can go to Hot Topics / marijuana. I think that's the URL. But so they have a whole bunch of content up there. This morning they're going to start to talk about stocks. They haven't yet talked about stocks, but today's the day.
Which stocks do you think they're going to focus on here? Is there any that you would focus on specifically? Like you say, you
Well,
covered 40. Which ones?
yeah. So, all right. Well, first of all, of those 40, probably 10 of them shouldn't even be in business. I mean, anybody that invests in them isn't investing, but that's a whole nother story.
Just speculative.
Worse than speculative. Speculative at least means you have a chance, right? So
Okay.
no, but I think just talking to them, one name that really jumps out, and I wouldn't buy it because of this, but I think that Kramer's going to gravitate. I don't think he knows about this one, but GW Pharma. It's a UK company. We talked about it the last time I was on the show, probably the other time as well.
GWPH, right?
GWPH, GW Pharma. It's been trading in London since 2001. They opened their doors in 1998. It's a great story. It's only gone up since we talked about it last time. But the reason why I think Kramer will like this one is, first of all, he loves biotech, and I haven't been able to poke any holes in this one. This is 100% biotech focused on cannabis, and
Wow.
they just raised. I don't know what the number is, but it was close to $90 million in the secondary, like 2.6 million shares, something like that, that they sold at 36. The thing opened above 40 the next day and rocketed to a new all-time high. So I'm not saying to jump in and buy it here, but you're asking me what they're going to focus on. That's a Kramer type of name. It's NASDAQ traded, $1 billion market cap. Very easy for somebody like him to talk about on even on Mad Money if he were to talk about one of those on Mad Money.
What
Do you feel
think?
like this is best in breed there, Alan? Like, is this the one? Like,
Well, yeah.
best
So there's
breed?
a bunch of wannabes that don't have funding. These guys have partners all around the world, cash in the bank. They don't. They have intellectual property. Anything that anybody be looking for, they have. Now they also have a high valuation. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say to buy it right here at $56, but that's the scoop on the first one. The second one is probably too small, but you were asking me what he might mention, and I know I talked at length with Ross about this one. The name of the company is Full Circle Capital. They're a business development company. The symbol's FULL. And so the story on this one, it's kind of interesting. The reason I say that they could mention it is it's NASDAQ traded, and it's not a pure marijuana play. This one, it's a diversified portfolio. I don't know if you guys know BDCs, but I've been following this space for, it's a narrow niche, and I've been following it for, I guess, 2 years or maybe a little longer. These companies are able to pass along, they don't pay tax. They have to follow certain rules, and they make loans to basically companies that are too small to get or too risky maybe to get bank loans. So like this one, their loans tend to be 12 to 16% loans. There's some equity kickers. It's basically mezzanine financing. But long story short, they did a deal that was announced the day after Martin Luther King Day on the 21st, and they are providing funding tied to real estate for one of the companies I really like. This company's based in Colorado, Advanced Cannabis Solutions, symbol CANN. We can talk about that one later. But basically, these guys got warrants on this stock, 1 million warrants at $5.50 a share. The stock was trading, I don't know, around 18. It's pulled back a little bit. I actually think that stock's worth 10 to 15 right now. So there's some value. They were able to get these warrants that last for 3 years, 5 million. There's only like 9.2 million shares. So that, could add almost, 75 cents to $1 to the price at the time. That's the first part. But then they're going to be lending them money, up to $30 million. The first $7.5 million is in the form of a convertible note with a $5 conversion price. So there's additional value there. The future ones will be more at the market, I think 110%. But the point is here you have a way for somebody to buy a monthly pay, 11% dividend yield company that has some leverage to the cannabis space. So I think that's the type of thing that someone like Kramer would like. It's a little
Very
small
interesting.
though.
Going
Yeah.
back to the GW Pharma here. Do you
Yep.
know what percentage of their revenues are derived from the marijuana industry?
So it's 100%, but you need to be careful. You'll see a big revenue number, but uh, like most biotechs, it's not all from product sale. It's from research collaboration. So uh, the they are approved, I think, in 22 markets in Europe and in other continents, but this is a U.S. deal. They have these phase 3 trials they're doing right now for their lead product, which is called Sativex. Sativex is a spray. It won't get you high. It has a little bit of THC. It's about a 50% ratio of THC, which is the component that would get you high with enough, and cannabidiol, which they call CBD. And it's used it's approved for something called MS spasticity in Europe. So people with MS have this syndrome, and this helps treat it. In the United States,
Whew.
there. What's that?
No, I mean you talk about you just said a treatment for MS. I mean, is it something for the
It doesn't cure
symptoms?
MS.
Oh, yeah, I
It
mean that
cures
you
from the
start.
side effects.
Symptoms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, the
whoa,
symptoms.
yeah, that would
but
be
but
something.
but so this same spray Sativex is being tested phase 3 trial for advanced cancer pain. It's a pretty easy sell politically because if they approve it, you're using marijuana instead of really heavy narcotics, morphine, codeine. So uh, that's one of the things. And then they'll come back with this MS spasticity. But the real story here is they have orphan drug status, which means they're going to have exclusive marketing rights for 7 years for something called Epidiolex. Epidiolex is pure CBD, no THC. It's to treat epilepsy in children. That's what they're working on right now. And this is one of the most remarkable things. People that don't know about cannabis, when they learn this, it can change their views. I mean, I get people all the time. They have religious views or whatever it is. They're against marijuana. They don't even understand that there's some medical benefit. And this is probably one of the primary ones. If you watch the weed documentary that Sanjay Gupta did in the summer, this was one of the topics he focused on. And so GW, I think it's going to be by 2019 that this whole thing could play out. So it's more of a long-term story. But to be able to save people's lives with this is just an amazing concept.
Do you think this is already priced in? Because I'm just looking at the chart here, and this was an
Yeah,
$8,
no
$10
doubt,
stock
no
in
doubt.
September, and now it's 56. Are we kind of like jumping on the train late here? If we're jumping
You
in
know,
now, should we be waiting for some pullback, or do you think this thing is like going to skyrocket to $100?
So I don't know, to be quite frank. I understand what you're saying. When it was, here's the deal. When you're a UK biotech, which is what they were, and they still are. These shares still trade in London, by the way, GWP. Uh, that you just don't have much of a fan base or investor base, basically.
Right.
And so going into the United States, it took a while. That those shares just sat there. I'm the kind of guy like, why get involved with something that's just sitting there? And so I kind of goofed up and didn't pay as much attention as I should have. But I did write about it on Seeking Alpha, and I think in October I talked to the CEO for about an hour. I was like, wow. And I'm like the last guy who says after stock's gone up 3x that it's going to keep going up. But that was kind of my view at the time. And so now you're asking me now is going to keep going up. That's a hard call. But what
Right.
I would say is, to have a FDA trials that seem pretty easy because they're copies of the phase 2 trials. So it seems very likely that they're going to have approvals next year for this first product, Sativex, which is already approved elsewhere. But they have a lot going on. When I talked to the CEO, the main thing I wanted to find out was, are they a one-trick pony? They have things for diabetes. I'm trying to remember there's like 4 or 5 distinct programs that they're working on, all very scientifically driven with, all on cannabinoid research. So I think the story has legs. Is it going to go straight up from here? I don't know. I put it on the watch list and look for it to pull back and jump in. Every time we've tried to do that, uh, it doesn't get quite to where we want it to get either,
I
and
me-
for the investor.
yeah, I
There's a
remember.
lot of people sitting there waiting for pullbacks.
Yeah,
Well,
when you were on originally, I remember the stock was around the $30 level, and it had a
right.
pop up and a pullback, and I remember talking about the $30 level, and it came down there, and never gave you another shot there. And now, if you're looking at a longer term chart here, I guess might want to jump in the water if it gets to 45. But I mean, you're talking about these new developments, and those things may or may not come to fruition. But I think what people are recognizing in marijuana stocks is that okay, you have two states. Okay, actually, Colorado is set up now. They have the stores. Washington's the next one. Isn't the real driver going to be these stocks? Is what if it's what if it's legalized in two or three more states? I mean
It's going to
that's
be,
the
by the way. Yes.
okay. Let's
So
talk about that.
yeah, and it's not just the legalization. There's when I was in Colorado earlier this month, there's nothing like you can read. I do a lot of reading. I work, you know, long hours sitting at my computer all the time. I do talk to people, but there's nothing like getting out there and actually seeing something. I had never been in a facility before, a grow facility, and I went for a tour. I was blown away when you think about what's going on, not just for the legal in Colorado, which is a huge opportunity, in Washington, which is coming, but even on the medical side, Massachusetts just approved 20 20 licenses on Friday, and I know a guy that got three of them. And if you think about what's going to happen, the build out and the how we're moving from a black market environment where maybe they got such good prices they didn't have to do things necessarily the right way or the best way. They weren't trying to optimize. This is a massive industry. I was told by Trip Kieber, the guy from Dixie, when I was in Colorado, that 20,000 people have gotten jobs in Colorado since legalization. Uh,
No,
so
really?
you're talking, yeah, you're talking about a powerful. I saw these workers in there. They're sitting there trimming the buds and doing all the packaging, watering these plants, doing all the stuff. But there, uh, there's automation coming. You can use automation to improve the production, the productivity of your grow. There's so much ahead. It blew me away to see it with my own eyes, and so yeah, more legalization. You're basically taking uh, you're taking a black market inefficient product that has very high demand and turning it into a real business.
Sounds like prohibition.
I know. I wish I was there back then. I can't really remember back that far, but
Joel can
yeah.
maybe. But how does it exactly work? So, and I know it's legal now in these states. Are you allowed to just smoke it on the street, or do you have to like be inside your own home? Where are you allowed to legally smoke? Because here's a question: it's one thing, to drink, but it's another thing to smoke pot beside somebody else that doesn't smoke, and then there's maybe a child around or something. How are they like controlling that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I checked into my hotel, and the first thing I saw was this huge sign that said, "Just because Colorado says it's legal doesn't mean you can do it here." And I'm like, "Wow!" And so I had some of my 420 investors subscribers meet me in Colorado, and they one of them stayed at a different hotel, and he got a smoking room. I mean, he really looked into this because he wanted to make sure he was doing it right. And then he gets to the hotel, and they say you can't smoke marijuana in your room, and he went just ballistic. He almost got thrown out of the hotel protesting, which is a whole nother story. But uh, this is a big problem for tourists because you can buy it, you can't really smoke it anywhere. It is kind of a problem. Now the good news is you don't have to smoke it. There's edibles and vaporization and all sorts of other things. But I think this will change. I talked to somebody in Vail. He said it's totally different there. The New York Times had an article or op-ed with Maureen Dowd the other day. She profiled a couple that has a kind of a weird bed and breakfast because they're into nudity and marijuana, but I'm not sure those two have to go together. But you're going to see that's a whole nother thing. You're going to see so much development. There will be hotels that cater to, that actually cater. But right now some of the hotels are a little bit nervous because they don't want their other guests to be offended. So I don't know.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
problem what you're saying.
Okay, so the industry, I mean, you could talk about the actual stocks themselves, but are there any industries that, may benefit from this? I mean, I don't I can't, I'm don't
Well,
going into the
sure,
growing and things
equipment
like that.
suppliers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The
Yep.
equipment suppliers. Are there any stocks on your radar that I mean, obviously, if this is a growing industry from 2 states to every state in the union here, there's going to be cultivated and ways to use the marijuana.
Uh,
What are some of the
I'm going to give you a secret. I'm looking for when I was in uh, one of the grow facilities I visited, I found out they don't use dirt. They use cocoa husks.
okay?
So I'm looking for that play. Maybe you guys can beat me to it, but the company that imports cocoa husks, that's going to be a big play. I'm kind of kidding. I don't know that there is a single company, but no, there's a whole bunch of different ways to play, whether it's the build out side or the peripheral devices. Let's talk about those first, because that's actually one of the most interesting areas. I wrote something on Benzinga the other day. I think it was 5 ways to play vaping or something like that, and I'm always amazed. I don't know that much about any of this. I've been learning. This is not my. I'm more of a stock guy than a cannabis guy, but on the East Coast, this trend hasn't quite gotten there yet. So a lot of people who are not real savvy or who maybe are on the East Coast aren't even aware of this trend. But on the West Coast, very popular. This whole idea of vaporizing rather than combusting the marijuana. And so there's a ton of reasons, whether it's for health reasons, whether it's for you're just wasting, you're wasting your marijuana when you just have it lit like that. Uh, uh, Less offensive odors. There's a lot of reasons to use uh, cannabis concentrates. So there's a huge industry out there. I haven't seen a public company yet. Well, actually, there's here's one. Waters, WAT. Huge company. This is not a cannabis play really, but I know for a fact that not only are they making sales into the uh, testing labs, that's going to be a big growth area, testing labs. But they're also selling a CO2 extractor, and these things sell for like I don't know, $150,000 or something like that. I don't think it can move the needle on a big company like that, but uh, maybe we'll see a public company that's smaller that it is more significant. But one of the things that we've seen are these vape pens. And in my article, I mentioned, I think, 5 companies. I have to think off the top of my head, but obviously one of them is MSIG, it's symbol MCIG.
Okay, we
I
got
like this company. They're based in Bellevue, Washington. They just announced a new product just moments ago. So I'm on with you guys. I can't even read. I know about it a little bit, but they did an acquisition the other day. They started off with a $10 vape pen. This is almost like a disposable. So basically, let's say you're going to a concert and you don't want to just light up. You can preload your vape pen, uh, and then you're using it's like an e-cig almost. You're using a lithium-ion battery it doesn't burn it. It heats it up enough to combust it. So that's one. There's a company called Vape Holdings. The symbol right now is PLPED. Paul, Larry, Paul, Edward, David.
Got it. Wow, that one really took off just a few
Well,
weeks
and
ago.
that they had a reverse split, so I
Oh,
know we're on
okay.
a
So
delay, so there's a little bit of a funky thing with the chart, and
yeah,
uh,
gotcha. That's maybe what happened.
but it did take off. It went literally from a penny, which is 40 cents after the reverse split, to 44. It was a 100 bagger, but that was kind of
Huh.
artificial. Yeah, I know that part it's real, but it was a little artificial because after these reverse splits, a lot of people can't sell because the shares are kind of tied up in their brokerage accounts. So I don't know who that idiot was that paid $44.
Holy cow!
I know.
what was the
Yeah,
symbol PLPED on that one?
Right,
yeah.
but they're going to have a great symbol. This is probably a reason to buy the stock in the next few days. Their symbol's going to change to VAPE, and
Vape.
they have. If you, for anybody listening, if you go to hiveceramics.com, you can kind of see their unique products and learn more about them. But that's another one. I know I kind of have a reputation for not being a huge fan of one of the most popular tickers, Medical Marijuana Inc., MJNA. And I don't know how big this is for them, but they've definitely been talking about it. They have uh, something called the hemp vape. Uh, It's a pen as well, but it handles liquids, and they're using it to sell their own CBD infused, or it's hemp oil with high CBD. It's not infused, and so, but just think about it. All you have to do is, I was in Colorado. They sell this stuff left and right in the stores. You just buy these cartridges, or you can you can buy the liquid and pour them into your cartridge, and so that pin sells for $30, I think, something like that. There's some high end stuff. I was talking about MSIG. They did an acquisition, and they bought a tabletop vaporizer. Not the best one on the market, from what I can tell. But I mean, these high end vaporizers, they'll be public because. I mean, I think that's what the hotel should do. Every hotel should buy a vaporizer and put it in their room for their guests to use.
Okay, so we talked about, I mean, GWPH, and then you get, this MJNA, which is obviously, a penny stock. And you said a lot of these stocks, shouldn't be listed or whatever. But can you find, is there, something in between this penny stock here, MJNA, and obviously GWPH has had a big run. Is there, any other, any stocks that might be flying a little bit low under the radar now, or just a couple of the ones that aren't big, aren't penny
Well,
stocks that you're
sure.
following?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier CANN. That's Advanced Cannabis Solutions. It's kind of a new company. It is a penny stock, but it's not trading in the pennies. Uh, I think that's the type of thing that I'm not saying that the price today anybody should buy it necessarily. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But the whole sector, if you read the article I just put out on Seeking Alpha, I mean, the whole sector on average is up over 300% this year. So this year being this last month.
Yeah, 1
So,
month. So you're
yeah, I
chasing a
mean,
bit for sure.
well, and a lot of that is some really crappy companies are driving that. I mentioned in that article, low float stocks are really doing well. I think the penny stock traders know what they're doing. They're pushing these stocks where they know that the floats are low. But the reality is the fundamentals will catch up. These valuations aren't sustainable for a lot of these stocks. I mentioned some in that article. I mentioned this one, CANN. But I do think any investors out there should put this one on their radar because this company is doing things the right way. They signed their first deal. I think there's going to be a lot more where they are buying the land and doing what's called a triple net lease with the grower. So basically, the grower doesn't have to lay out any capital. This company lays out the capital to get the project going, and then gets the rent over time. And it's basically talking to them a 20 to 25% IRR to CANN. So a very good investment. And now they have it funded. One of the things I took away from that whole deal with Full, which we talked about earlier, was that those guys, I talked to they have co-CEOs. These guys worked at like Goldman Sachs, I think in Morgan Stanley, very legitimate Ivy League type guys, New York City, Wall Street guys. They picked these guys, and it's not like they just picked them last week. They've been working on this for almost a year. So I think that what you're asking me is, are there some legitimate companies? You're not asking me if you should buy them.
Right.
And I'm highly certain that this is a very legitimate company, even though it's on the OTC now. And there's a bunch of other ones too, like 5 or 6 that I'm not going to give them all to you right now, but that's kind of the way I would look at it right now.
And what about do you think that there's going to be any spillover effects to the cigarette companies? I mean, obviously, a lot of people that smoke cigarettes, may also smoke marijuana, and what do you think? Do you think that this is going to have a negative effect? I mean, do you think people are going to migrate over, and this could have a negative effect on some of the
Tobacco?
tobacco
Yeah.
stocks?
Well, I don't think that. I think the bigger thing is, if I were an investor in the sector right now, what I would be thinking is, what's going to happen? Do we have to worry about not only tobacco but alcohol companies coming into the space? That's not going to happen for a while because they have too much to lose. Those are the richest companies out there, and lawyers love to go after rich people. So it's federally illegal to sell marijuana. There's no doubt that if these companies actually try to touch cannabis for now, they're taking a huge risk. Not going to happen. Now, here's what I think is going to happen and why I would be I'm struggling with the valuations. I said that in that article, and I say that to my subscribers. It's really hard to justify these valuations. We don't know how fast things are going to take off in terms of the business, but here's a huge catalyst I think is coming. I don't think I've said this before anywhere, so breaking news. It would not surprise me to see a big alcohol or big tobacco company make an equity investment in one of these companies. And so they're not going to make an equity investment in some stupid penny stock, I can assure you. They're going to do their due diligence, and they're going to look for a company that they think is doing things the right way and has huge potential. So uh, specifically on tobacco companies, I mentioned this MSIG. There was a big acquisition of eSig, I think was the symbol. I might be wrong about that. Uh, I didn't really follow this company very closely, but there was an acquisition in the space. There would be nothing wrong with a company making an equity investment in MSIG. I know nothing about that if that's actually the case, but just thinking it through, and then that adds even more legitimacy to that stock or to the sector. So I think that in terms of a threat to those companies over the longer term, I'd say you could be right that as society changes its attitudes towards marijuana and against alcohol, uh, that could be a big thing. I don't know about the tobacco part. People are addicted to nicotine. I don't know why. I don't see that substitution effect, but there is an opportunity for these companies that already know how to play the vice card. And my guess is that they're going to buy their way in via minority equity stakes for now.
Okay, you've talked about a lot of the positive for marijuana stocks, and we know Washington's stance on this is something that could be a factor. So there's a lot of positive momentum here going in the direction of some of these stocks, as evidence in their stock price. Is this like, are you talking about a 2, a 3, a 5, a 10, a 20-year trend here, or what could upset the apple cart here? And
Okay,
or do you see
so
things just going too much in this direction and there's just no turning back?
all right, so I was making a decent living not talking about marijuana stocks, and I've basically given up almost everything to focus almost exclusively. So that kind of tells you where I'm coming from. To put the time frame on it, it's at least 3 years. I think the worst thing that could happen for me, at least, and for these penny stocks too, or these uh, startups basically, would be for the federal government to come out tomorrow and just legalize marijuana. But that's not going to happen. And so uh, the research I'm reading would suggest that that could happen by like 2020. So that's when it will really be mainstream. I think we have about 5 to 7 years here, 5 to 6 years, where you're going to see the same process of the government with a hands-off attitude, letting the states roll out on their own. The state implementation in Colorado has gone exceptionally well. Washington also knows the world is watching, so hopefully that is as well. If you look at the legislative calendars, the state of Florida just they needed a court ruling, but now it's official that they will have medical marijuana on the ballot in November. I think, people have asked me about this year. This Colorado thing was a huge catalyst. What's going to happen the rest of the year? Well, Washington will be implemented partially in April when the growers get their licenses, but the retail part's the bigger part. That's supposedly in June, no fixed date. But then we'll have a lot of elections in actually Alaska is supposed to have a primary in August. I mean, there's not that many people living in Alaska, but probably just another reason to go to Alaska when they approve that in August. But you're going to see a lot of states moving. It's such a win. It's a win for the state itself in terms of tax revenue and job creation. It's a win for consumers who can get better quality product, and from the health side to approve it for health reasons. That helps consumers, and there's a huge entrepreneurial benefit as well. I mean, companies are going to make a lot of money doing things in a more efficient process.
Okay, so we've had Alan Brochstein on 420 Investor is his newsletter. Alan, thanks a lot for coming on. I mean, these stocks have been in the news for a while. We've been fortunate enough to have you on covering these issues here. We'll keep informed of what's going on. We'd very much like to have you on again.
I appreciate it. It's always great to be here. I look forward to joining you again soon.
Okay, thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
Alan.
Take care.
Okay, we're going to move on to Mighty Joe Young with some morning headlines.
Thank you very much, Joel. Thank you, Alan Brochstein, for coming on the show today. Hope you all. I'm working on a piece right now, publishing for the site for the best Super Bowl commercials, so be on the lookout for that. I'm embedding the YouTube videos in it as we speak. Moving into today's editorial headlines from around the globe, in case you didn't know, the Seattle Seahawks smashed the Denver Broncos 43-8 in Super Bowl 48 Sunday night. It is tied for the third largest margin of defeat in Super Bowl history. Malcolm Smith, only the eighth defensive player to ever win the Most Valuable Player award, intercepted a Peyton Manning pass and returned it 69 yards for a touchdown to give Seattle a 22-0 lead. He also recovered a fumble by Broncos receiver Demarius Thomas. That turnover resulted in another Seattle touchdown. For the game, Smith accounted for 9 tackles, including 5 solo tackles and 2 passes defended. The largest defeat ever lies also with the Broncos, who fell to Joe Montana's 49ers in a final score of 55-10 in Super Bowl 24. Joseph A. Bank told Men's Warehouse on Sunday it won't enter buyout talks and has been looking at other acquisitions, including retailer Eddie Bauer. People familiar with the matter said. Joseph A. Banks sent a letter today telling Men's Warehouse that a $57.50 share a bid undervalues the company and that managers see no reason to enter negotiations. Meanwhile, Joseph A. Bank has held preliminary talks to acquire outdoor clothing retailer Eddie Bauer, said one of the people, who has not to be identified because the talks are private. A new report from the New York Times suggests that Apple is looking at new charging methods for some of its devices, including the iWatch. These charging methods may not be entirely new, as Apple could end up including wireless charging technologies in its devices, something that other tech companies have begun to do. However, a former Apple executive told the New York Times that the company has continuously tried to figure out a way in which solar charging for iPhones and other products could work. The executive says that the technology may still be years off, but Apple views it as a possibility for future generations of the iWatch, iPhone, and etc. Through a patent filing, we have also learned that Apple is at least contemplating a motion-based charging system that would presumably supplement the core charging method. The patent states that a device could be charged when the user is running or walking with the help of magnets. For a device like the iWatch, which is likely to be used more easily when exercising, this charging method could extend the device's battery life. Keith Lorizio, VP of U.S. Sales for Microsoft's advertising division, is no longer with the company. A Microsoft spokesperson confirmed the news, which Adweek had reported earlier on Friday. We can confirm that Keith Lorizio, VP of U.S. Sales for Microsoft Advertising, is no longer with the company. Barry Dugan, General Manager of Global Specialist Sales, will assume interim leadership of the U.S. Ad Sales organization while we conduct a rigorous and thoughtful search for a permanent replacement. This search will include internal as well as external candidates, the spokesperson said in a statement. The 13-year Microsoft veteran, Lorizio took over sales and marketing for Microsoft's ads division in 2010. In that role, he reported to global sales head Carolyn Everson, who left in 2011 to join Facebook. Mr. Lorizio's duties expanded in 2012 to include management of Microsoft's global agency team after the executive in charge of that team left. Recode reports that according to numerous sources inside Yahoo, CEO Marissa Mayer has ordered up 2 under-the-radar initiatives that could potentially get the company back into algorithmic search as well as search advertising. The internal code names for the efforts, which are not actually being done together, though they are in tandem, are borrowed from sports, in this case basketball and baseball, projects Fast Break and Curveball respectively. Sources said the plan is being done as part of a contemplation of how Yahoo can accelerate the end of its long-term search and advertising partnership with Microsoft. Currently, Yahoo only has control over the search experience. Fast Break and Curveball involve a number of top Yahoo executives. Twitter is getting serious about commerce on its service. So much that it looks as though soon you'll be able to buy goods for sale directly from a tweet. The microblogging service is close to finalizing a deal with payment services company Stripe, which would likely handle the back-end processing for making purchases on Twitter. As for the front end, Twitter looks likely to partner with at least one online commerce site, Fancy.com, which will let users purchase products inside the Twitter app and website, according to documentation discovered by Recode. It is part of a new program called Twitter Commerce, according to these documents, which were discovered on the open web through a public section of Fancy.com's website that was not password protected. The images have not been verified by either company. And Oscar-winning actor Philip Seymour Hoffman was found dead in his Manhattan apartment Sunday of an apparent drug overdose, law enforcement sources said. Police said Hoffman, 46 years old, was found on the bathroom floor and pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators found 2 bags of what is believed to be heroin inside of the 4th-floor apartment. He was expected to get his children on Sunday, but never showed up. Playwright David Katz and another person went to the apartment and found him dead. A needle was in the actor's left arm, and 8 empty glassine-type bags that usually contain heroin were found inside the apartment, law enforcement sources told CNN. The bags were stamped with Ace of Hearts and Ace of Spades, street names for heroin. Hoffman won an Academy Award for Best Actor for the 2005 Capote and drew critical acclaim for his roles in a wide variety of films. Woody Allen's daughter, Dylan Farrow, has come public with sexual assault claims. An open letter published over the weekend says Allen sexually assaulted Farrow, the adopted daughter of actress Mia Farrow and Allen, in an attic when she was 7 years old. This isn't new, though.
Well, it's the first time she's actually coming public.
Gotcha. The claims were investigated in 1993 when they were originally made, and prosecutors decided not to press charges. Allen has always maintained his innocence. The letter was the first time Farrow has spoken publicly about the allegations and comes a week after Allen was nominated for a screenwriting Oscar for his latest film. For so long, Woody Allen's acceptance silenced me, she wrote. It felt like a personal rebuke. Like the awards and accolades were a way to tell me to shut up and go away. Farrow alleges other instances of inappropriate behavior and asked how people in Hollywood could continue to work with Allen. Allen will be responding soon, but called the claims untrue and disgraceful. I'm a Woody Allen fan. I didn't really like reading that. In today's trivia tidbit, on this day in 1959 was the day the music died. Don McLean's famous song was a remembrance to the plane crash that killed some of the biggest names in popular music at the time. 21-year-old pilot Roger Peterson relied on an incomplete weather report and on the self-confidence of youth in making the decision to take off from Clear Lake, Iowa shortly after midnight on February 3rd, 1959. Untrained and uncertified in instrument-only flight, Peterson was flying into conditions that made visual navigation impossible. Today's trivia question, everyone on your mark? Who were the 3 artists aboard the plane? I bet you I know this one. Anyone? Joel?
Not too sure about this one.
No? Brent? Any thoughts? No?
Frankie Valli?
No. Frankie Valli's still alive.
Oh, sorry, Frankie. I bet you someone out of the chat room can get this one.
Let's see. We've got Shubs posting in the chat room, and Joel will give you his winnings from the Super Bowl squares. Did you win anything from the squares, Joel?
No, but Dana did.
Oh, okay. He'll give you Dana's. Jake, you have any guesses? Laura? Erica? No? Alrighty then. The 3 artists aboard the plane were Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson. And I'll spare you all singing tunes from each one of them so that your ears don't bleed. But those were the 3 aboard the plane. There was a movie made about Richie Valens called La Bamba, I think. And there was a coin toss they do in the movie for who gets to freeze took us off on the bus and who gets to fly in the plane. And Richie Valens was afraid of flying, and he wound up dying in the plane crash. So that wraps it up for me, ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder, the show would not be possible without our dear friends at OptionsHouse, who will give you 150 commission-free trades if you sign up for an account through this page. So there's buttons at the top and the bottom right. Make a click, go on through, open an account, get 150 commission-free trades just because you listen to Benzinga's pre-market prep show. And that'll do it for me. Brent, are you out there?
Yep. I'm out here. I'm out there. I'm out everywhere.
That's right. He's an indoor-outdoor kind of guy. Upside down. He's got some rating changes for us.
I got a
under the
few
belt.
of the rating changes.
Well, serve him up.
Actually, there's quite a few today. A couple of top upgrades. Guggenheim upgrading shares of Goldman Sachs from neutral to buy. Susquehanna on the move today. Let's see, we got 3 upgrades from them. I think they had a couple notable downgrades. Also, Susquehanna upgrading shares of Pulte Home from neutral to positive, shares of Nvidia from negative to neutral, and shares of MasterCard from neutral to positive. Piper Jaffray upgrading shares of this is Whole Foods Whiskey Foxtrot Mike up from neutral to overweight. And then an analyst at a firm called Drexel Hamilton upgrading shares of Northrop Grumman from hold to buy. And the last notable upgrade for this morning, Piper Jaffray upgrading shares of NetApp November Tango Alpha Papa from neutral to overweight. A couple of the notable downgrades this morning. We have 1, 2, 3 downgrades on shares of Mattel this morning. Each of those analysts moving to neutral. We have SunTrust, Longbow, and B. Riley & Co. all downgrading shares of Mattel. And then on the other side there, FBR Capital downgrading shares of MasterCard from Outperform to Market Perform. Mentioned that upgrade from Susquehanna a little bit earlier. Medivation, Mike Delta, Victor November downgraded to Market Perform at Bernstein and downgraded to hold at Needham. CRT Capital downgrading shares of Lear. Goldman Sachs downgrading shares of Eaton Vance to sell. RBC Capital downgrading shares of Applied Materials to sector perform. And the last one, and I think you might want to check this one out, Joel, Bank of America downgrading shares of Zynga from neutral to underperform. Bank of America not liking Zynga here, and actually just a little bit of breaking news hitting the wire right as the market opening. Ford releasing January U.S. auto sales figures down 7.5%. Traders looking for a decline of just 2.3% there, so much worse than expected. January auto sales coming out just now. Breaking news from Ford.
Let's take a look. First, starting out with the Zynga chart here. Had that rally on Friday here regarding the earnings. Got up to the $450 level. Had a major pullback here. Not I guess major. Hit 410, 413. 410 was Friday's low. So if you're still looking to fade that upgrade here, needs to stay above 410. Resistance will probably be moving down from Friday's high of 450, and longer term really needs to clear that $450 level in order to have another leg up. Below 410, a lot of room on the downside because you start to get into the range from Thursday, and that's all the way down to 357. S&Ps, we did have a pretty good sell-off here during our show during the pre-market. Took out the close here, traded down to the 1774 area. For early in the session here, we need to get back above the close at 1776.75. If not, we'll come down minor support at the pre-market low of 1771.50. Taking a look here at a couple of the issues that we talked about in the pre-market show. Twitter, who's due to release earnings this week, trading up in the session here. Had a double top at right around from Thursday and Friday. Where was a double top at? Right around the $65 area. We've opened above that. We made a 66.11 high. This is the highest level here for Twitter since it traded up to 67.73 on January 7th. So, Jake, you ready to go here?
Yes, sir. Ready to rock and roll.
Okay, what do you got for us?
Well, I think have you gone over Ford and GM yet after those
Nope.
auto sales? We should probably dive into those real quick before I get into any kind of a list here. Ford's auto sales were lower than expected, and they are trading down on it. They're below $15 now, so it's really kind of interesting to me. What do you think on Ford right now?
It's just had a rough run here. Got up over 16, and now we've come down pretty hard. We've had several lows in a row. This 15 was a major support area, and now we've taken it out here. This is the lowest level for shares of Ford since it traded down to 1430. Well, that was on the weekly there. We traded down in the lower 14s in June here. So as opposed to trying to pick a bottom here in Ford, I'd kind of like to see it get back over and reclaim that $15 level. And taking it, GM, they announced that the dividend, and this stock has had some problems, as opposed to Ford, which has already taken out support here. GM has been hugging the $36 level here. Not including today. In the last four trading sessions, it made a bottom between 35.88 and 36.03. Made a low here at 35.97. So if it can hang in here around 36 here another day or two, because that's confirmed by some lows that you had under 36 back in November here. So clinging to support. I mean, as opposed to Ford just kind of like falling out of bed. At least GM is at a support point.
Right. I mean, I think it's definitely kind of interesting to take a look at what these companies are doing right now. There was that Barron's article over the weekend that had both Ford and GM featured. They said GM would be better as a pick on the short term. They think long term Ford is the better play. I just thought it was interesting how we had that kind of data coming in on the automakers, and then you add in that we're getting these data points right now. You wonder if some traders may be waiting until midday, see if this weakness can kind of continue in Ford, and use that perhaps as an entry point if they think they're going to go long term on it. I don't know, just kind of interesting. On the anecdotal side, my roommate just picked up one of those new Fusions, totally loaded. Nice car, nice car.
That yeah,
That's it's incredible. The seats literally, like, you just sink into them, and I don't know, they're just amazingly designed. They have like lumbar support. They literally like give you posture. I don't know. It's incredible. It's a work of art.
The Barron's article was talking about how Ford is kind of pausing here, but they already have things in the work to really ramp up production. Where GM, going through the bankruptcy and everything, does to have the higher sales, but now they're kind of going into the R&D, phase to ramp up production. I just hope the follow through that they're looking for on the increases in sales, follows through, or else, if not, they might be ramping up production here at at the wrong time. But the facility for Ford's supposed to be already in place.
Yeah, I mean, it should just be interesting, especially since we still have a fair amount of weakness in Europe from both of the two names. I mean, I think that's kind of really going to be the focus in the coming quarters of, all right, where is this growth going to be coming from? Probably Europe, because United States auto market's really recovered, and it's just a battleground over all these names are releasing amazing products. So where else can they go? So definitely interesting to take a look at there. I was seeing some strength in Goodyear Tire, kind of keeping along the same lines of the auto industry this morning. Actually, they're trading down now, so I guess all that strength is gone. Golf Tango is the ticker there. They're trading down almost 1% now. Earlier this morning, they were a bit up. I think it was just one trade. It was that kind of just caught it in the pre-market, but it was announced that they're going to be supplying the tires for the new Dodge Ram in 2014. I don't know if that's really significant news for a company like this, but that was hitting the wires, and it looks like somebody bid on it and bought it and took it up a little bit. But there's so little volume. I think that's just what caused the jump. But now Goodyear Tires coming down, probably following the Ford numbers.
Right. Had a real bad move off the open here. Opened up 23.55. Just got a little bit over the range from Friday here. Wow, this is a pretty good move for Goodyear Tire. We made a low at 23.36 here, trying to recover. Looking at the daily charts, really good support at the $23 level. You had lows on Wednesday and Thursday at 23.11, 23.09. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a pullback here, $23 level, pretty good support in Goodyear Tire.
I know we've talked a little bit about the Super Bowl yesterday and how what kind of disappointment it was as far as competition wise. But I know, like, I think you were telling some of our listeners about how in my case, I think I watched about one quarter of the game with any attentiveness, and then after that I was just sitting on Twitter the rest of the time, literally just laughing at all the ridiculous tweets going out there, either making fun of the Broncos or comparing the teams to this and that. There was some awesome stuff going on. There was J.C. Penney's weird. Did you see their campaign? They put out like 4 different tweets that looked like they were basically drunk tweeting. They're spelling everything wrong, getting like words all screwed up, and so they basically all these other brands bid on it, and they went after them. And so like even Coors tweeted at them, it's like always drink and tweet responsibly, and then what was it? It was Pizza Hut said, "Hey, looks like you guys are having a few pops over there. You guys need some pizzas too."
Did they ever explain?
Yeah, well, yeah, they did, and so it was supposed to be some kind of viral marketing thing. What they did is they said, "Sorry, we're tweeting with mittens on," and they put out a picture of them wearing the mittens that are the U.S. Olympic team mittens. But it didn't exactly work because it wasn't a cold game like expected. It was 50 degrees, so why would they be wearing mittens at the game? And then also, I think a lot of people just kind of made fun of them. It's like, all right, this is kind of a dumb campaign, but I guess everybody's talking about it, so they got that going for them. I mean, maybe that's what they're really looking for, but so J.C. Penney, I think, kind of was the talk there, whether or not it was is a kind of good way. But I just really kind of wanted to focus on the fact that Twitter is dominating the conversation about the Super Bowl and not the Super Bowl itself. Twitter is where the whole conversation was going on. It was not Facebook. I checked both my feeds. I'd see an occasional Facebook post, but Twitter was so active. That was actually a lot more entertaining to watch than the game.
Right, just going back to this J.C. Penney here, it had the low of the move at 6.25, and it's taken that out. It's finding a little bit of support in the last 2 trading sessions at 568 and 569. That's when it bottomed at the 6.25 level back in October. That was a double bottom that turned it around. So, low Roos, if you're trying to do a swing trade here in the issue, keep an eye on that double bottom multi-year low. Dennis just wanted to point out here, Radio Shack, who was his top commercial.
Mm-hmm.
That did get a pop here. Was able to rally a little bit off the open, but for you guys who like to trade the lower price stocks here, ran into a mound of resistance right at the same area it did before. For 3 days in a row, back in at the end of January, you stopped between 259 and 262. That put the brakes on it today, and today's session 259, now falling back a little bit. So if you're looking for a continuation in the Radio Shack move, really need to get above the 262. And just one other thing here, AT&T trading down all morning here on cutting prices. Took a big dive off that in the pre-market, but in the regular session, just kind of holding up here at the 32.70 level. You had a you had a low on Friday at 32.77, holding in here at 32.70. So we'll see if it can rally off from this area. If not, you're looking at the low of the move at 32.01.
Yeah, I mean, I know with that Radio Shack commercial is actually really interesting because the company, their whole commercial is based around it's changing over from what the company was in the 80s to now what it should be in 2014. And I think the whole talk of the living room that I was in was, okay, so they waited they waited 34 years to change their model. Okay, so I think that was kind of funny. But Radio Shack is getting a little bit of a pop here. I mean, they're up 13 cents, so not bad. AT&T, very interesting that they got forced into dropping their prices by T-Mobile. That's kind of all of a result of T-Mobile going after AT&T and Verizon customers saying they'll buy out your plan, they'll give you a better contract. And I think some of the big guys are kind of panicking at this one because T-Mobile is just completely trolling their customer bases, and it seems to be working. I mean, even my friends who think that T-Mobile service is subpar are still considering it because they're like, well, I'm getting just absolutely crushed by my Verizon bill, and apparently you can call Verizon now, and if you complain that your bill's too high and you're considering just switching into T-Mobile, it'll lower it. I haven't given this a try myself, so I don't know, but that's what I've heard a couple people saying, so definitely something to take a look at. As far as some of the other things going on out in the markets, I did see American Airlines showing some strength this morning. Alpha Alpha Lima, it is not. Let's see. It looks like my chart pulled up the wrong one. Let me switch over here. to a different chart. So Alpha Lima is a ticker there, up about 1.6%. It got a nice piece from the street saying it was priced to perfection. I don't really think that that's exactly what it was, but getting a little bit of strength this morning, above $34 now, so that's kind of interesting. Joel, do you have any thoughts on American Airlines?
Three highs, including today's session between 34.08 and 34 and a quarter. I guess all those cancellations and stuff due to the weather is, you think it would have more of an effect on some of these airline stocks, but not the case here. Just looking for a continuation of the move. Did trade up to 34 and a quarter, so you'd like to see it clear that. Coming back on the downside here, opened up above the close. The close was a 33.55. Opened up, came back within 11 cents of that. So support should be moving up in the into the higher 33 handle. Just going back to that AT&T. When the initial news came out on that, looking at the intraday chart, they took it immediately down to the 32.70 level. But perhaps you had some big buyers in the book here as well, because even though it was trading that low in the pre-market, it still managed to open up over 33 bucks, and then came off real hard off that level. Now you're back in the trading in Friday's lows. So if you were using the pre-market trading, perhaps as a key to the open there, you got a good look at that. But 9:44 here, Jake. We need to wrap things up. S&Ps were able to clear the close, get up to 1779 here, but still not a lot of strength in the market here. So any final thoughts for our traders here going into the remainder of the day?
I'm seeing a little weakness in the S&P right now. I guess if we see continued weakness in these auto sales numbers, I don't think that would be very encouraging. What was GM's there? Brent's telling me that down 12%. That's brutal. GM down 12% versus down 2.5% expected. That was pretty rough. So Ford missing, GM missing. Let's see what some of these these smaller luxury brands are doing. But those are both pretty bad. I wouldn't be surprised if the market takes it as a little bit of a cue to sell off for a bit today.
Okay, sure headed in that direction. All right, well, thanks for joining the broadcast, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.